Twitter CEO Elon Musk has teased the release of the Fauci Files. On Sunday, Musk wrote, "Hope you're having a great day one, 2023. One thing's for sure, it won't be boring." And one user replied, "Waiting for Fauci Files," to which Musk responded, "Later this week."
The Fauci Files come as Musk faces a whirlwind of bad press amidst reports that he lost half of his multi-billion-dollar fortune over the last year. According to Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Musk, who leads Tesla, SpaceX, and now Twitter, saw his wealth drop $200 billion from November 2021 through last month, making it one of the biggest losses of wealth in recent history. According to the index, the CEO's declined wealth stems from the dip in Tesla stock, which was down 65% in 2022. Despite the historic losses, Musk is still very much a billionaire, boasting status as the second richest person on Earth.
Yeah, look, obviously a lot of people who do not agree politically with Elon Musk were kind of taking a victory lap and have been watching Tesla's stock plummet.
But don't all those people want
riotously.
Billionaires to not have any money anyway or something?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a double celebration, it's a triple celebration. It's perfectly ideologically consistent. But it's worth pointing out that there are people who support Elon Musk, who are also Tesla advisors, that are not happy at all, and who are pointing to what looks like a conflict of interest between the amount of time that he's devoting at Twitter and the amount of time he is on Twitter and the fate of his primary industry and the source of his enormous wealth, including one investor, Gary Black, tweeted, "Elon's a brilliant business leader. He will realize soon already, if not already, that his polarizing political views are hurting customer perceptions of Tesla." So this is not someone who is anti-Musk. It's someone who's an investor who thinks that Elon is great, but that he is distracted. And he goes on to say that if he were to refocus all of his energies on running Tesla, it could be at a $3 trillion market cap in 5 years. And there's many, many more like that. I mean, do you think that Elon's statements that he will in fact step down at some point indicate that he is kind of taking this advice to heart?
Yeah, I don't think the statement that you just read is unfair whatsoever. And to some degree, it seems that Elon knows this because he has said that he's going to step down and name a different CEO. I think that makes total sense. He can own Twitter. He doesn't have to be the person running it or coming up with all the policies or responding to every single person on Twitter who has a grievance, or at least every single right-wing person, which is what he seems to be doing. And I see how over time that's going to give the perception of one-sidedness and could hurt the other businesses. So I understand what those other investors are saying. I think it's a good thing that he acquired Twitter and has shed some light on what went on during the previous Twitter regime. We're learning a lot about how COVID moderation was made, about how moderation related to so-called election misinformation was made. I think these have been worthy contributions to the public dialogue, concerns about who's doing it and could it have been more transparent, maybe have some legitimacy, but on the whole, this is a positive project. That doesn't mean he needs to be the person like the guy literally in charge of its day-to-day operations. He should find someone or a number of people, a team of people who share his vision for what Twitter should be. And it sounds like that's a kind of public square with a much higher degree of free speech protections and transparency around how moderation decisions are made. And that person can be accountable to Elon Musk and hopefully accountable to the users of Twitter and whoever is involved in making sure it makes money. But that doesn't need to be Elon, and he can, be less distracted. That seems like a smart decision, so I hope to see that take place.
And frankly, there might be more positive attention toward the disclosures if there is the perception that it's a little bit distant from Elon, who's become a polarizing figure, and that the files are being reviewed by an ideologically diverse group of people who can not, can have their biases less obviously confirmed, the way that we all have our biases confirmed when we're doing this kind of research. So people should definitely watch, if they haven't already, the segment we did today all about the COVID Twitter files drop. I wonder what you expect we might learn additionally from a Fauci-specific Twitter file drop.
So by Fauci files, I presume they mean any communications that Fauci himself had, or maybe people in his office with Twitter. I'm not sure. I have no idea how vast those are. I would presume they weren't particularly vast. That people, we know people from the CDC communicate. I've even reviewed some documents that I'm writing about that I'm going to talk about in greater detail at a future date when I'm done with that. It's typically not Fauci himself, but if there is Fauci himself, obviously that will be of great interest. It might be the case. It might be the case Fauci will be just as surprised by what he said as anyone else. If you recall from that testimony, that deposition that he participated in, where he said he didn't, I don't recall everything that's passed my desk that I've signed off on. So it could be quite interesting. We will definitely cover it.
Yeah.
There could be something to learn there, but it sounds like most of the content moderation relating to COVID, a lot of it was coming from the White House and the CDC, but probably not from Fauci himself.
And as you were home over the break, perhaps watching more cable news than you might ordinarily, what do you make of the lack of coverage of the Twitter file disclosures? Do you think that this has any kind of public penetration beyond people who are very online, the 3% of Americans who are on Twitter? Do you think this is these disclosures are ultimately going to move the needle in any meaningful way politically?
Yeah, I think it is notable that all the Twitter files taken in their totality have barely merited a mention from mainstream cable news. Obviously, conservative news, Fox has covered them very, very much so. I think the mainstream outlets, I'm not sure that the cable news outlets have much excuse not to cover it. I don't know why they're not covering it more. I think your mainstream kind of reporting outlets like the New York Times and the Washington Post or something will say, well, we're not going to report on it unless they can share the documents with us, and then we'll report on it. But we're not doing third-hand report, although they do that on other issues all the time. So it's not really a totally legitimate excuse.
Right. They are in the files releasing screen grabs of various emails, and I don't know that there has been a real questioning of the authenticity of those documents.
Obviously, they're not. I'm sure you can take issue. People will take issue with what House Schellenberger, Zweig, and Barry Weiss and Taibbi have framed things, but they're. I trust that those are real documents they're screenshotting. I don't think anyone with any legitimacy is suggesting that it's not. So then it feels like a choice to just not cover this at all, not let viewers and readers know that know the full extent of how much the government was pushing these companies to engage in the sort of moderation we saw throughout the election and throughout COVID.
On the flip side of that, if you wanted more coverage, and if these media institutions are saying that we would be happy to cover them if we had access to the primary documents, it's hard for me to understand if you're already doing the document review process and making them available to journalists, why not make them more available to more journalists so you can have some mainstream penetration and so more people can know what's up? I mean, not doing so is going to lead people to the implication that there's a selective release of documents that is hiding unfavorable facts to a different partisan perspective. And there's a really easy way to push back against that implication, and I think also enrich journalism for the broader public. So
I agree, but even so, there are so few stories in mainstream outlets, or even noting that we were denied. It can say these are being reported by these individuals. We have asked for access. We were denied access. They're not even. That's not happening to a large degree. Yeah, it's very, very interesting and kind of telling.
Fauci Files up next. We'll cover that when they are released, and we'll have more Rising for you after this.